my name is Mrs. Crompton and these are the top test taking tips I use in my classroom. On the right hand side of your screen you can see the top test taking tips sheet. On the left hand side you can see some text and some questions. Now these are what I give the students to help them have a strategy of step by step what to do with what's on the left. So first thing I ask them to do is think about TPIQ, which you can see here. So TPIQ, title, picture, introduction, questions. So when they get a sheet like what's on the left, they're going to start by writing TPIQ right at the top of their sheet. So the first step they need to be thinking about is the title. You see, quite often without TPIQ, students jump straight to the main text here and they ignore what's above there. So this gets them thinking about that. So T, title. So I've read the title, The Hard Day at School, cross my T out. P is picture. Now on this one there's no picture or diagram, so I'm going to cross it out. If there was a picture or diagram, I'd spend a minute or so studying that to get as much information as possible. Next part is I for the introduction. Now this is a part that's definitely missed by so many students, and yet the detail in here is quite important. So I've read my introduction, so I can cross that. The next part is the questions. So before they actually read the text, I ask them to read these questions. So there's one, and there's two, and so on. Tell them to ignore the answer choices, but just focus on the questions. Now, I will remind them that they don't have to remember the questions, but just reading them will help them when they're reading the text focus on certain things. For example, on question 1, what test did Ben have that morning? They might not remember any of that, but they might remember the word test. So when they're reading in the text, when they come across the word test, they'll be thinking, oh, I've got to pay particular attention here because that could be one of my questions. Okay, so I've read my questions, so I've slashed that off. Now, the next two parts are slash the trash and the find it finger. Slash the trash is when they've done the TPIQ and they've read the text, they come back to the questions. What test did Ben have that morning? Okay, when I read the text, I remember nothing about a math test, so I'm going to slash that one. Now, I'm not too sure about the other ones, so let's have a look. Okay, as I'm scanning back through the text here, I can see reading test, and near the end I can see science test. Okay, reading test and science test, but there's nothing about a writing test, so I'm going to slash that one. So I've slashed 2, and that's all I want them to do. Slash the trash, only 2. So we've slashed, we've got 2 left, and I'm going to choose from there. I'm going to read carefully. I'm going to use my find it finger to put my finger on exactly where the answer is. And here I've found it. He knew that he had a reading test that morning in school. That's the answer to my question 1. So I can circle it or I can highlight it, but my answer is reading test. Now B, I'm going to leave. So when I come back through this, I've got my answer D, but when I come back through to check, I know it's one of them. I can ignore my slash the trash ones. I can ignore them completely like they're not there. But I can just check, is it really a reading test or was it the science test? And I can check to see if I've got the right answer. Okay, they do that for each question. So as this starts, TPIQ, and then for each question use slash the trash and find it finger. Okay, and hopefully we're going to get good scores on all the tests. Thank you for listening.